Let me start by telling you something that would have offended me 10 years ago. That is that you can hit every deadline, pull off every event, solve every problem, and still be losing as a leader. You can be impressive and still be unsafe. You can be productive and still be hard to build with. You can get the job done and still leave a room heavier than you found it. I know this because, unfortunately, I've done this.
Learning to Lead is brought to you by Adventist Young Professionals, a global community creating spaces where young adults can grow in faith, build authentic friendships, and discover their calling. Learn more at ayp.me. That's ayp.me.
Welcome back to Learning to Lead with Tim Kosaka. I'm Tim. In the last episode, I talked about the story before the story, the builder wiring, the insecurity underneath the drive, the fear masquerading as ambition. Today, I want to take you into the seasons where that wiring met real people and real consequences. Because here's what I didn't fully understand at the time. Every gift, if it's unsubmitted, becomes dangerous. And one of the dangers of being a builder is that you can start seeing people as extensions of the build. Not because you consciously think people don't matter. You would never say that. It's more subtle than that. You start treating people like variables in a project. You start assuming everyone should move at your speed. You start valuing responsiveness over honesty. You start calling pressure vision. You start calling your urgency leadership. You start calling other people's limits lack of commitment. And if God doesn't interrupt that, you can become the kind of leader who gets results while slowly eroding trust. I think there are a lot of young leaders who are sincere, deeply invested in the mission, and spiritually serious, but nobody has taught them how to lead without running people over. Nobody taught them how to tell the difference between conviction and pressure. Nobody taught them that if people can't tell you the truth, you don't have a healthy team. You just have a quiet one. That was me, and I had to learn it the hard way. Now, before I get into the harder part of the story, let me give you the contrast, because this episode isn't only about what I got wrong. It's also about what God let me see that showed me a different way. Between my junior and senior year of college, I took a year off and served as a full-time volunteer at a Christian academy. And that year was a crash course in what it actually looks like to lead people, not just projects. On one side, I was doing communications work, writing, creating content, learning how words land, how to work with feedback, how good intentions are not enough if people don't understand what you're trying to say. That was its own kind of formation. On the other side, I was managing a student janitorial team. I know that doesn't sound impactful, but it was one of the most formative leadership experiences of my life. You see, you cannot lead a janitorial team on personality alone. You lead it with presence, with consistency, with standards that are clear and fair. You lead it by noticing when a student is having a rough week, by correcting without humiliating, by caring about the quality of the work while also caring about the person doing the work. I remember walking through the school building after it had been cleaned and feeling something almost too simple to name. This matters. The unseen work matters. The ordinary work matters. And the people doing the work matter. Not because of what they're producing, but because of who they are. That sounds obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me yet in the way that it needed to be. Because there's a version of leadership where you optimize for outcomes and tell yourself that people are your most important variable. That sounds good, but it's still fundamentally mechanical. The person is in service of the result. What I was starting to learn on that janitorial team was something different. The result was in service of the person. The clean building was a byproduct. The dignity, the discipline, the showing up, that was the actual work. Leadership should not be measured by how impressive the mission looks. It should be measured by what it does to people. Who do they become under your leadership? Do they grow stronger or smaller, more confident or more anxious? And then there were the leaders around me in that season who modeled something I hadn't fully seen before. The school's vice principal was not technically my supervisor, but he took care of us young adult volunteers in a way that was not on his job description. Checking in, taking genuine interest, making space in his home. Simple warmth. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was just consistent, attentive care for the people around him. My direct manager, the school's head of communication, gave me feedback in a way that built me rather than discouraged me. She was honest and direct. She had real standards. But correction from her didn't feel like diminishment. It felt like someone investing in what they believed was there. Neither of them were trying to give me a leadership lesson. They were just leading well. And when you're young and you experience that, it gets to you. It models something you don't even have words to describe. You just know this is what it feels like to be led by someone who actually sees you. So pay attention to the leaders who notice you. Pay attention to how they correct you. Pay attention to whether they care about your development or only your output. That stuff gets into your bones. It forms the way you'll eventually lead others. So, I had seen it modeled. I understood it, at least in my head. But then I went back to Walla Walla University for my senior year, and this is where my story gets really honest. I stepped into student government as social vice president. I had experience now, ideas, confidence, standards. I knew how to organize. I knew how to push. I wanted excellent programs. I wanted students to feel proud of campus life. I wanted momentum. And my pace was intense. I can still picture those planning sessions, whiteboard covered, ideas flying, deadlines looming, me energized by what was possible, thinking, this is it. This is leadership. But here's what I didn't see yet. I was setting pace by my own internal capacity. And I can carry a lot. That's part of my wiring. But just because you can carry something doesn't mean it's wise to normalize it for everyone around you. Some leaders confuse personal capacity with organizational wisdom. Those are not the same thing. And more than once that year, members of my team could not keep up with my pace and quit mid-year. I remember the confusion more than the frustration, because in my mind, we were doing good things. We were improving campus life, so why wouldn't everyone be all in? That was the blind spot. I was measuring good leadership by output. I wasn't measuring it by what the work was doing to the people inside. And here's the harder admission. I think I noticed that something was off. I didn't fully understand what it was teaching me. It would take more time and more failure for that to fully land. But I can look back now and see what God was trying to put in my bones. Even if you're doing great things, if your team can't keep up or doesn't want to follow, that is not a recruitment problem. That is a leadership issue. The most uncomfortable version of that question is, what if I am part of the problem? That question, if you let God hold you in, can save your leadership. Because I had to sit with the possibility that I could be right about the goal and wrong about the way I was carrying people toward it. That I could be sincere and still be unsafe. That I could be trying to serve and still be making it harder for people to serve with me. If I could sit across from that version of myself today, I would say people are not interruptions to the mission. People are the mission. And I know that sounds simple. It changes everything once you really believe it. Because if people are the mission, then leadership is not mainly about extracting output. It's about stewarding human beings in a way that helps them to grow, contribute, and remain intact. The goal is not just to get the thing done, it's to get it done in a way that leaves people stronger. That's a completely different approach to leadership. And it doesn't mean that low standards are okay. I still believe excellence matters. I still believe outcomes matter. But it means your standards cannot be separate from how you care for the people being asked to meet them. And when those two things, when they come apart, when the standard is present but the care is not, something breaks. Sometimes quietly, sometimes over the course of months, sometimes you don't even realize it until someone walks out the door and you're left wondering where the team went.
Ever feel like your calendar's full but your community's empty? That's why AYP chapters exist. Across cities around the world, young adults are gathering for Bible studies that feel like real conversations, game nights, service projects, hikes, and the kind of friendships that don't end even when the event does. Find your people, find your chapter. Visit ayp.me/chapters and join a community near you. That's ayp.me/chapters.
Welcome back. Let me give you a concept that's been helpful to me in describing what I was talking about before the break. I call it emotional residue. The truth is that every leader leaves some. After people interact with you, what lingers? What's the feeling in the room after you have left it? Is it clarity, peace, ownership, confidence? Or is it anxiety, second-guessing, defensiveness, a kind of quiet, collective bracing for what is next? If you want to understand how your leadership actually feels to the people inside it, don't just look at whether things are getting done. Ask, what lingers after you leave the room? Because a lot of what people call culture is just accumulated emotional residue. It's the feeling that builds over time from 1,000 small interactions, and you are creating it whether or not you intend to. Now, this connects to something that I think is one of the most underrated qualities in a leader. Are you creating an environment where honesty is possible? Not honesty in the abstract sense, but honesty in a very specific sense. For example, can someone on your team tell you that they are overwhelmed before they hit a wall? Can someone disagree with your plan without feeling like they've betrayed you? Can someone say the timeline is unrealistic, or that the communication was confusing, or that the pace is burning them out? Can someone admit that they made a mistake before it becomes a disaster? Because if the answer is no, your team isn't strong. It's simply quiet, and those are not the same thing. You see, fear can mimic alignment. Fear can create speed and quick compliance. Fear can make a leader feel like things are going well, but fear destroys honesty. And once honesty is gone, health is already leaving the room. You just may not see it for a while. People-first leadership is not lower expectation leadership. It's leadership where honesty is easier than image management, where care and accountability live in the same house, where you can have real standards and real warmth at the same time. What does this actually look like in practice? Well, let me tell you about a few shifts that changed the way I lead. The first one is pace. You don't know how healthy your leadership is by looking at what you can carry. You know it by whether the people around you can sustainably carry it too. I kept setting pace by my own internal capacity. That was the wrong thing to measure. Your gifting may let you sprint. That doesn't mean your team should live in a sprint as well. Now the second, it's curiosity before assumption. Task-first leaders assume. People-first leaders ask. Task first says, why isn't this done yet? People first says, what's making this hard right now? That shift sounds small. It changes culture because people relax into ownership when they feel respected enough to tell the truth. The third thing is the difference between recruiting helpers and developing people who actually own the mission. And this is a big one. You see, a lot of leaders are good at finding people to help them execute. Can you handle this? Can you take that? That has its place. But if all you are doing is filling slots, people eventually feel used. They may not say it out loud, but they feel it. They feel like their value is tied to what they produce, like they're only needed when there's a gap. When people feel genuinely developed, something different happens. They feel seen. They feel trusted. They feel like their role is connected to calling, not just convenience. And that changes how they show up. The difference between a person who helps you and a person who owns the mission with you is enormous. And it starts with how you invite them in. Do you say, hey, can you help me with this? Or do you say, hey, I think you would be really good at this. I want to build this with you. You see, that second one is an invitation into something real. Now, before I wrap things up, I want to clarify that I did not apply all these lessons at once. Some of them took years. Many of them are ones that I'm still working on. Correction is not a moment. It is a trajectory. And I think that some of you are going to hear this episode, you're going to hear what I've shared, and immediately start feeling bad for yourself. You're going to tell yourself, hey, I've led this way. I've hurt people. I shouldn't be leading. That's not the point. The point is not that you've made mistakes, so maybe you shouldn't lead. The point is that you've made mistakes, so you need to lead with greater surrender. Correction is not disqualification. Correction is discipleship. One of the most loving things God can do for a leader is not let them stay impressive and immature at the same time. So if you're in a season of correction right now, maybe through tension in a team, maybe through hard feedback, maybe through the growing awareness that the way you lead is creating unnecessary weight for others, don't waste that moment. Sit with it. Invite truth. Let God make you safer. Because safer leaders build stronger people, and stronger people build healthier communities. Now, before we close, here are 3 questions worth sitting with this week. First, when people disappoint me, what gets activated first? Is it curiosity or control? That question will tell you a lot about what kind of leader you are becoming. Second, how expensive is honesty around me? Can people admit when they're overwhelmed? Can they disagree? Can they tell me when something isn't working? Because if honesty is expensive, people will pay with silence instead, and silence is not healthy. And finally, what is the emotional residue I'm leaving? After people spend time with me, what is it that lingers? In the next episode, we're going to move from correction into calling. I'm going to tell you about the season after college when I had no roadmap, but I had 2 very practical prayers and a small seed that I had no idea would become something much bigger. That's where the story of AYP really begins. But until then, thanks for being here. This is Learning to Lead with Tim Kosaka. I'll see you next week.
Someone out there is looking for the kind of community only you could help create. AYP is looking for young adults like you to help build a thriving network of local chapters and virtual groups. Apply at ayp.me/apply. That's ayp.me/apply.